Hi everyone, my name is Twyla Voloshin. I'm a gold consultant with Immunotech, and I'm here to welcome you to hear Lila Elliot speak. On December 8th, I got to meet Lila, and she absolutely changed my life. Any of you who had known me from before, lots of you have said I'm half the woman I was, but I've actually never felt more larger than life, because I got my life back, and I'm getting my health back in a big way. I won't bore you with my testimony right now because we got bigger things to come, but you're here to learn about glutathione, and this is not something that's brand new. This is something that's actually been in Canada for 43 years and nobody knows. So we're all about being here and being able to spread the word and spread the good news that we can increase our health and get our health, our bodies working for us instead of against us. And I know when when I met Lila on December 8th, as soon as she said, and this product is in the doctor's CPS for 22 years, I was like, where's my credit card? I'm going to get out my credit card and I want to buy this wholesale. How do I do that right now? And so I'm very grateful and honored to be able to introduce Lila. Lila has a nursing background. She was an RN, and she is a microscopist, which means that she studies blood under a microscope. And when I met her, she told me story after story in the 20 months previous to meeting her on December 8th, how she had people with all kinds of disease come into her office to have their blood tested. And with eating and a couple diet changes, in a few months down the road, the blood looked a whole lot more amazing. And we won't be covering any of that today on the video, but you get the chance to be inspired by Lila. She literally changed my life, and I absolutely love her. She's someone who's been speaking for 2 years now across Western Canada to educate people, because nobody knows that this is out there. So please relax and sit back. Nobody's going to sell you anything today. It's all about getting the good news out there. And I will pass it over to Lila Elliot, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your Sunday, which I know is a special day for many people, to learn about an amazing product called Immunocal and an even amazing company called Immunotech. I'd like to just give you a little bit of background about myself. As Twyla said, you know, I analyze blood for a living. My name is Lila. I live in Summerland, BC. And 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer for the first time. And I was quite shocked because my lifestyle was very good. I was formerly a triathlete and a fitness instructor, and really didn't have any clue as to why I'd wound up with this disease. And my first diagnosis with cancer, I listened to my doctor and did what I was told to do, which included 1 major surgery and 2 minor surgeries. And I never really felt like I fully recovered from that. I'm a very positive person, so I was always self-talking, yeah, you can do it, and you're getting better, and so on and so forth, but things really didn't change that much for me. And in September of 2000, I felt myself in not a very good health condition again, and I thought, could this be happening again? And of course, I didn't want to really realize that, because I was a single mom raising teenagers on my own. I had a mortgage and everything, and I was really hoping I was wrong. But December rolled around in 2000, and I went back into my family doctor, and he said to me, we're in trouble again. And my comment to him at the time was, well, what we did the first time didn't work. I really don't want people cutting and hacking more pieces out of me. And in the interim, I come across the work of a man named Otto Warburg. Now, I don't know how many of you know about Otto Warburg's work, but in 1931, so 87 years ago, he was given the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology for his research on how the body regenerates at the cellular level in reference to the pH scale. And his work was, his Nobel Prize came as a result of his research on the propagation of cancer. And so he immediately had my attention. And what he said back then was that there are clear common denominators that cancer patients have. One is anaerobic cell structure, or lack of oxygen in the blood, and cancer patients always have a lowered mark pH in the body, meaning they were too acidic. And I was just shocked by this information. I thought, if a man won a Nobel Prize all these years ago, why aren't we talking about this? So with that information, I went to my family doctor. I seen my 2 other specialists, and my family doctor was the one that gave me the support. And what he said to me was, you know, this is not my teaching. This whole pH teaching it's not my teaching. But what you're telling me makes sense to me. So here's what I'm prepared to do. I'm prepared to stand beside you on one condition, that things don't get worse. If things get worse, you come back into mainstream fold, we go through things in a totally different way. And I agreed. I was desperately seeking, and if you go back, you know, even on the internet 20 years ago, everything was dial up. It took you like 10 minutes to get a site to come up, and the information that we have available today was not readily available, 20 years ago. So once I had this pH information from Otto Warburg, I didn't really know where to go with it, because a lot of people weren't talking about pH almost 2 decades ago. What I was finding was that more people were talking about the pH of their hot tubs or pools or their fish tanks than they were about their bodies. So I was really in a place of feeling I really needed to find someone who really understood this pH teaching. And I was asking for an opportunity for someone to come into my life to share this with me. And I'm not a person who believes in coincidences. And out of the blue, I did get a email from some really close friends of mine out of Whitehorse. Now, Mike and his wife had been trying to have a baby for a very long time, and he had had chronic asthma from the time he was a child. He carried an asthma puffer. I'd met this young couple in Vegas a couple of years earlier, and we always stayed in contact. And what happened for me was they, unbeknownst to them, I was seeking this pH information, and they came to share it with me. And what they told me was that they had been introduced to this pH teaching from this doctor out of the United States, and that through dietary changes, they were able to, number 1, conceive a baby, and him, number 2, get rid of his asthma puffer. And so I thought, boy, this is all aligning with what Otto Warburg spoke of. And so I was very excited. The next morning I dialed Mike up and I said, Mike, I don't know who this doctor is, but now I'm going through the second diagnosis. I believe secondary diagnosis with cancer is a common thing for a lot of people, just simply because we don't get to the root cause. And I just want to take a second to explain that. What I would explain to people when they'd ask me, well, how did you get cancer? And I said, you know what, this is the best way I can explain it. When I had cancer, my blood was like a garbage dump. And what gets drawn to the dump? The seagulls. Well, the seagulls will merely represent the symptoms. For some people it's hypertension, for someone else it could be diabetes, for someone else it could be migraine headaches. For me it was cancer. So the seagulls are feeding at the dump, and we want to get rid of the seagulls. So what we've been trained up to do in Western medicine is we've been trained up to load up a gun with what we'll call pharmaceutical drugs, and we shoot the seagulls. And that usually works for a while. But the problem is when we turn our back to load the gun, what have we never addressed? The dump. So the question then becomes, if the dump wasn't there, what would the seagulls have to come to? Nothing. So that whole teaching really helped me to understand that if I could keep my body in a proper state of balance, I would not set the stage for things to run amok. Now, I won't get into the pH scale today, but as Twyla said, I analyze blood for a living. And unlike a traditional blood test when I was in nursing, where the blood's taken and sent to the lab and they look for, a specific disease disorder account of, for example, your red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, your liver enzymes, whatever it may be, what we do is take a drop of capillary blood from the finger, and what we're actually looking for is how the body is rebuilding itself and regenerating. And the reason that's important is because each one of us is made up of, well over 60 trillion blood cells, everything from our brain to our connective tissue has come from that basic unit of life, a cell. Now, as Twyla was saying, this is something that what we're talking about today has been in us from the moment we were conceived. From that very first cell that gave us life, glutathione was present in us, and its role was to help our bodies, to protect our bodies against invaders, and to maintain balance so that we wouldn't set the stage for disease and illness to get a foothold. Now, over the years, I've been doing a lot of teaching on nutrition and working with the pH scale, and there's been some amazing things happen for people because, you know, like a garden, our bodies need many different things. A garden needs, you know, the sunshine, a garden needs the rain, the garden needs the good minerals and the good soil and the wind and all those different components. And so do our bodies. So when we teach about pH and getting the body back into homeostasis or balance, what we're looking for is to help target the very foundation of the human frame. So if you can imagine you're building a home and your foundation is not solid, your foundation is crumbling, will it matter what kinds of doors and windows you put in that house? So when I start teaching, we're looking for foundational products that help the body to repair, renew, and regenerate. And with the blood, life and death being in the blood, it's the only thing moving from the tip of the toes to the top of the head, rebuilding us at all times. And even while we're doing this right now, in each one of us, millions of cells are dying, millions of cells are being born in the small intestine and the bone marrow, and millions of cells are in a regenerative state. Now we see the manifestation of that on the outside of the body because, you know, our nails grow, our hair grows, we've got to go for haircuts, we get new skin, that's all cell regeneration. But what we're going to talk about today is actually going to help your internal or your intrinsic environment to spit out a blueprint that if you have been feeling sick and tired will help support better health. So getting onto Immunotech and Immunocal, I was introduced to the company just over 2 years ago, and I was introduced through a lab technician out of Kelowna General Hospital who was a client of mine. Her name was Nikki. She phoned me at home and she said, "You have to have a look at this. This is all about cells, and it's gonna blow your mind." And I said, "Okay." She sent me the information, and I started reading about it, and I realized that it was all around peptides. And 10 years ago, I had been in Mexico and worked with a doctor down there and a scientist from Thailand, and came to understand, you know, how polysaccharides and polypeptides, how important they were to our whole, you know, the whole continuing reproduction of our body, because we're constantly in a state of rebuilding ourselves. And I looked at the product. And one of my first things with that product that I realized was that it was a whey protein isolate. And I immediately took a step back and went, sorry, I'm out, no way to whey. Because I had worked with so many people that have many different issues with whey. But what I learned about this product is that it is a whey protein isolate, and it's prepared in a totally different way than a whey protein that we would know from a health food store or from, say, for example, Costco. And I think a lot of people make that identification with whey proteins as being muscle builders and all this type of thing, which is great, and there's nothing wrong with those products if people can take them. But this was a totally different cup of tea. And what they did was, through this whey protein isolate, they raise cows in 2 different parts of the world. One is in Idaho and one is in Ireland. And the cows are raised in very nice conditions. They're free range, grass fed, and they are raised about 2,500 feet above sea level so that they're not exposed to a lot of hydrocarbons and, you know, emissions from vehicles and things like that. And they take this raw milk and they put it through several levels of cold filtration. And in doing that, what they do is they remove the sugar, they remove the lactose, they remove casein, they remove all fat-soluble toxins, water-soluble toxins, and contaminants. And so at the end of the day, what we're left with is a tripeptide that helps our bodies to repair, renew, and regenerate and go to the place of need. So I was pretty ecstatic when I seen this, because I knew a little bit about glutathione from my diagnosis of cancer many years before, because one of the doctors that mentored me back to health wrote a number of books. He was published by AOL Time Warner, and he spoke of glutathione 20 years earlier. And so I'd known about it, but I'd never known of a proper delivery system to get it into the human frame. And there it was right in my hands. So the company, Immunocal, is it's a Canadian company out of Montreal. The product itself is backed by over 42 years of research and science, commencing out of McGill University. Numerous universities have studied it around the world now. It's received many accolades from many accredited locations and places where we've been able to share studies and things like that. And it's just been a fabulous product. So this tripeptide, this whey protein, what it does is it helps us to enhance our immune function. So it's for the maintenance of a strong immune system, which we know if our immune system is not compromised, we will not set the stage for disease and illness to get a foothold. And secondarily to that, it's clinically proven to help our bodies through the cysteine precursor, part of that tripeptide molecule. There's 3 molecules involved: glycine, glutamate, and cysteine. And through that cysteine, bonded cysteine molecule, it allows our body to enhance our levels of glutathione. And for those of you who don't know what glutathione is a sulfur molecule, and its role is to protect our body from invaders. It wages war against things like free radicals, oxidative stress, any type of cellular breakdown, heavy metals, viruses. And in addition to that, it helps to recycle all other antioxidants, which there are over 4,000 available to the human frame, and help put them to work. So it actually expedites all the good things we choose to do. Now, the difference between our whey protein, and I'll just talk on that again for a second, our whey proteins and our undenatured whey protein isolate, is that whey proteins are pasteurized. And when they're pasteurized, through that heat processing, many of the good molecules that the body can use and put to work are destroyed through heat. So if you just take a second and think of the difference between a raw piece of broccoli and a piece of broccoli that's been cooked for 20 minutes, which one's going to have more value? So it was a very unique process over 2 decades of sweat equity with Dr. Gustavo Bonos and Dr. Patricia Conshavin, who worked tirelessly and put a lot of love and energy into trying to find out, exactly how they could, in a sense, replicate mother's milk. And the reason they wanted to do that is because, in essence, what they wanted to do was recreate a situation for us as adults and, older, to be able to have a same situation where if we we're taking a product into the body, that it would respond the same as when we take our brand new babies home and nurse them, and we pass all those healthy antigens through mother's milk to help build an immune function that will get our children or our babies off to a good start. So this research is been now over 42 years. It's received all different types of accolades globally. It's been featured in the New England Journal of Medicine. 10 years ago, Dr. Luc Montagnier won a Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology. He's a world leader for the AIDS virus, AIDS, HIV, and hepatitis. And he dedicated actually a chapter in his book, not to glutathione, but to what Immunocal did to help his patients. So over the years, there's been a lot of really wonderful things happen. Now, Twyla had touched on the CPS. What is that? It's our Canadian Compendium of Pharmaceuticals and Specialties, and we have an equivalent book in the United States called the PDR. These are very difficult books to get into. You don't just, you just don't get in there. There's a lot of research and science. and that has to be set forward before they will do that. Now that compendium holds every single, pharmaceutical drug, everything from Ativan to Zoloft in there. It tells you when you should take it, when you shouldn't take it. Don't drink alcohol, don't mix with citrus juices, take on an empty stomach, don't take on an empty stomach. Whatever that is, may cause this, may cause that, may cause headaches, may cause constipation. Whatever those things are, that book holds thousands of different listings. And in that book, our product is a natural nutraceutical, clinically proven to help our immune function, for the maintenance of the healthy immune system, and for our bodies to naturally raise its own levels of glutathione to keep us in tip-top shape. So it was a pretty amazing thing for me to see as a practitioner, because as a practitioner over the years, I've seen many things come and go, and I've been approached by many different companies for many different products. But what I loved so much about the Immunocal is that as someone who studies the blood, this targets the very foundation of the human frame, and which is the blood. And again, life and death is in the blood. It is the only thing that moves from the tip of the toes to the top of the head and rebuilds us at all times. So, the whey protein, again, once I understood that this was a tripeptide and not just another whey protein, it totally changed everything. And it was, just a second here, it's getting warm. The other thing that I wanted to share is a little bit for those of you who do know about glutathione or have heard about glutathione, because a lot of times people say, well, I can buy it in the health food store. I can buy it in the health food store in the form of a pill. I can go and get a shot from my practitioner. I can get it through a nebulizer. I can buy it, I can get it from other different sources. The problem is that none of them are natural. The only way you can naturally produce glutathione is within your cells. So a lot of the things that are available to us in the health food stores or in shots or nebulizers or IV therapies have a couple of problems. They work, but for example, an intravenous or a shot has a half-life after about 2 to 4 hours, which means sort of the same thing as if, say for example, you were going on a road trip and you needed to drive across Canada and you put $5 in your gas tank. You would have to keep stopping at how many stations to keep filling? $5, $5, $5. That's what happens when we don't actually have the ability to keep creating it. It works for a bit and it's great, but it doesn't have a long-term effect, and it doesn't teach our body to make its own. It doesn't allow us that ability. A lot of the glutathiones that are available to us, again, none of them are natural. They come from different sources. They come from bacteria and funguses and animals. They come from human hair, chicken feathers, pig bristles. Call me silly, but I think for myself, I'd rather be taking something that helps my body produce its own and have a long-term effect. So, it is a very dynamic product. Health Canada, who we know is very pharmaceutically driven, has garnered this product with a couple of health claims saying, yes, it does what it says it does. And 2 health claims are out with Health Canada. One was in 2007. The other one was in 2015, both on the Immunocal product. And the second health claim that came out, both have the same claim. Thank you, Simona. Both have the same claim. There we go. I was going to say, we'll be English today. French is on the other side. Yes, so it's for the maintenance of a strong immune system, and through the cysteine precursor, allows our bodies to enhance its own levels of glutathione. This was the original Immunocal. This one here came out with the health claim in 2015. They both come with the same health claims. only this one here comes with the prevention of bone loss. This is an excellent product because it's got your peptides, which work against inflammation and also help with your alkaline minerals, which help create pH balance in the body. This one here is good for anyone over the age of 25 years. And it's great for people who are experiencing bone challenges or muscle or tissue challenges. Also is excellent for athletes because athletes, when they exert themselves, they wind up with a lot of oxidative stress. This one here is excellent also for children, which was the other thing that I was very stunned to see when I was involved with Immunocal. I had no idea that Health Canada had designated dosages even for babies on this stuff. That's how safe it is. So really all we're doing with this product is replacing what we lose through the cycle of imbalance, which can be anything from, and for most of us, it's a combination of different things and who knows what it could be. So it's things such as genetic predisposition. We go through cellular breakdown as a result of maybe being genetically predisposed to something. Physical disturbances such as an accident, maybe a car accident or a fall off a ladder or a scaffold or who knows what that might be. Chemical environments. Maybe someone's a welder and they don't always, or they work in a chemical plant and don't always wear a mask. So we go through the breakdown from chemical environments, radiation, of course, our standard American diet, which we fondly refer to as the acronym for the SAD diet, full of GMOs and of course stress. Stress is a huge one, and unfortunately we live in a time where everything that we need to stay healthy is compromised, from our water, our air, our soil, our food. And so I believe, and these are my thoughts, but I believe we live in a time where supplementation is necessary, and when you can actually get your hands on something that is safe, it covers every single person, from your baby to, in my case, my 90-year-old mother, and everyone in between, and it doesn't contraindicate with medications, and it's safe to take, and it helps the body to get back into balance. It's something I believe everybody should be having a look at. I graduated from grade 12 almost 43 years ago, and at that time I knew one person with cancer and I didn't even know what it was. Now I've been through it twice myself. Every single person out there could go into a mall or to, doesn't matter what type of function you might attend, talk to 10 people you've never laid eyes on, and not one person, I can guarantee you, can say everyone I know is in excellent health. Unfortunately, the time we live in, if you were sick, 43 years ago, you were the anomaly. Now, if you're healthy, you're the anomaly. So it's very, very important for us to be aware of these things. We're here just to give you some information today so that, in my teaching, which is the teaching of the new biology, in a nutshell, it simply states when the body's in a state of lack, ideally what we want to do is replace what we lose through that cycle of breakdown with something the body identifies as belonging there. When your body identifies it, it can put it to work and it will go to the place of need. So, for example, if you took your car to a mechanic and the mechanic went, oh, okay, you wanted an oil change, Lila, but I thought, yeah, we kind of thought about it, and today we're going to throw Gatorade in there. How well is your car going to run? Your vehicle that you have in your driveway, you can go and trade that in any day of the week, anytime you want. If it gets old or beat up or banged up, but the vehicle you live in, this is the only one you have. And it's very, very important to keep the vehicle you live in healthy, because we're living longer these days and it's your birthright to live with a quality of life. So I'm just going to, I think I've covered just about everything, but people will often ask me, who can this help? And the short answer is, well, if you have an immune system, and we all do, and if you're made of blood, and we all are, this is for you. So, you know, it would be wonderful for you to get back to the people that shared this information with you. We would like to be able to answer any questions you might have. We won't do this on film, but we will be here to help support you. And I would just like to, you know, close out with this, a couple of things. There was a fellow who wrote a book called The Celestine Prophecy years ago, and I don't know how many of you are aware of that book, but he made the correlation between life force in the body and life force foods, and replacing what we lose with the things that the body can use and put to work. And the comment was, in a nutshell, he said, you know, what we need to really realize is that we're always moving in one of two directions. We're moving into a state of being more alive, or we're decomposing. And once we understand that, it becomes increasingly difficult to fall back asleep. So I always like to leave people with one of my favorite quotes from the late Fred Rogers, because I liked growing up in his neighborhood. But he was an amazing man, and one of the things that he said was, you know, at the center of the universe is a loving heart that continually beats for all people. And anytime we have the opportunity to foster the emotional, physical, spiritual, or nutritional balances of another human being, that's our job. And even when people may not always understand the message we're trying to relay, we need to just continue in the face of all adversity, because the bottom line is life is for service. We're here to help each other. You know, we want to be able to share what we know and give people an option, if they so choose, to take that option. So I would like to thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon with us, and yep, that's it.
Thank you, Lana.
Just a second.
Where was
Just
that?
a second. Just a
Yeah.
second.